Thank you so much for having me here today. As mentioned, my name is Rachel Sumekh. I'm the founder and CEO of an organization called Swipe Out Hunger. I'm also 26 years old. I grew up in Los Angeles, which is currently where I live. I was raised by two immigrant parents who showed me what hustle can do as they achieved and went beyond the American dream, and taught me to work hard. I eventually got into UCLA, and I was not much of a social justice activist until I got to college. I actually spent most of my youth wearing my hair always pulled back, a big mouthful of braces, always full of blue bands. I wish someone told me I should not put blue rubber bands in my teeth, but I loved them. I was pretty shy, pretty quiet until I got to college and got the chance to practice leadership. As you all know, this is such an amazing opportunity to get to know more about yourself. After I graduated, I moved to Chicago, and I became a case manager where I help people who are in homeless or in poverty get back on their feet. I would spend most of my days doing things like filling out job applications with folks, housing applications, and then I would come home after hours and work on Swipe Out Hunger, which at the time meant on the phone with other college students across the country who wanted to replicate what we did at UCLA. And it taught me two things living in Chicago that year. The first was that I did not need to sit across from the person I was helping to be an activist. I graduated with this millennial urge to change the world, and I was gonna go in the trenches and do the job and be about that life. And then I realized that I had even more fun, and I made an even bigger difference spending 1 hour on the phone with another passionate college student out there who wanted to do this, and training them with just some bit of consulting to organize their campus to address the issue of hunger. So I moved back to LA. Oh, the second thing that it taught me, very important, is never mention the name of another Big Ten school when you're talking to someone who went to another Big Ten, and do not get the slogans wrong. And I eventually moved back to LA with this lesson of, I can make a change from anywhere. I don't need to sit across from the person I was helping. So I've spent the past over 4 years now, I moved back in 2014, seeing what would happen if I spent my full time being committed to ending the stereotype of the starving college student, saying the ramen noodle diet ramen is fine. It's not fine if you're having it 4 nights in a row. And that's what Swipe Out Hunger is committed to doing, making sure that any college student doesn't have to have food stand in the way of a diploma. What we do is partner with universities across the US to implement really common sense and also innovative solutions to end hunger on campus. And for those of you who might not totally be sympathetic to this, I get it. There's so many injustices in the world, from diseases to extreme poverty. I have chosen to commit my life to the privileged college student. And why I do this actually makes a lot of sense to me. If someone, especially a person who we've told, if you want more opportunities in life, go to school. Go to undergrad. We love school so much, go get a master's degree. That's how you'll get opportunity. What we haven't done is ask, does that actually work? Do we know if all the supportive services we're providing to the students so they can get into college, so they can stay in college, peer mentors, coaches, it's taking a lot to make sure a student, a first-generation student, or a former foster student, or an international student, or what have you, does well in school. What if we actually just fucking said the schools are not made for the diverse people who are attending them today, right? And what if we just change that? So that's what I'm committed to doing, making sure that for the student, which a degree would make the biggest difference for, food, the most basic thing, we're starting with the most visceral statement and saying, if 1 in 5 of your students does not have access to enough food, maybe that's a problem. Does anyone know where this is, what this is? It's the Buckeye Food Pantry. On campus here, just across, does anyone know where it is? In the Lincoln Tower. On this very campus, in 2014, Alex started the Buckeye Food Pantry after seeing that almost 1 in 5 of his peers were on a weekly basis skipping meals. And he said, that is not okay. I can do something about that. And this is what I love. To me, a social entrepreneur is defined by this definition that Kathleen Kelly Janis came up with, or a lot of people use this analogy, and I recently heard it through her mouth, and she said, a social entrepreneur does not give a man a fish. She does not teach a man how to fish. She looks at the fishing industry and does not rest until it is revolutionized. You find the problem. The problem is that our schools are not accessible. They're not welcoming. They're not made for the students that are attending them today. So now that I've spoken a decent amount about the problem, you're probably wondering what we actually do to help address this, and I did that on purpose. I think we are very excited about finding the solution to things and focusing on how innovative and awesome the solution is. And often the problem is the thing that needs to remain as a focus. So what I love about ALEC and what I love about social entrepreneurs in general is that they're idealists as hell. They believe that the solution is possible. We're so hopeful. And we're also extremely critical. We're like spotting all the problems everywhere, seeing where things are broken, and we're mad as hell. We believe that it is not okay for these injustices to exist. Why are people okay with all these injustices existing? And we're speaking up about it because we're also hopeful. We know that this change is possible. We know that something can happen. This is why social movements are often led by young people, because we have the capacity to hold both of these at the same time. That's why I'm excited to be here on a university campus sharing this message, because you get it. You are mad and you are hopeful, and that's what drives you to question and to act and to speak out. And that is a predicament my friends and I found ourselves in 2010 as we walked into our campus dining hall and took our meal cards that had way too many meal swipes on them and started swiping boxes and boxes of food. We would then walk out onto the streets of Los Angeles and hand these boxes of to-go food to anyone we saw on the street who looked like they might need a hand. That model has grown dramatically since. We have scaled that, and I'll go into the story of how that happened, which I hope is the meat of what I share today. We've been able to scale that across the country to over 19 states, serve over 1.4 million meals just by tapping into extra meal card money. And just this past year, we're called upon by the state of California to draft a piece of legislation. Literally got a phone call from a legislator saying, how do we take your program statewide? This is a problem, we need to act on it. I was able to come up with a comprehensive, just like on a Word document, wrote what I think would need to be there, not just our program, making sure that we also included food stamps, SNAP in there, and other supportive services. A month later, I was testifying, and 2 months after that, the governor signed our bill into law and assigned $7.5 million behind it to make sure it's actually enacted. All of this from a few friends who started with their meal swipes. So how did we get here? I want to first show a little infographic that helps a bit more to describe what we do, in case you are a couple years away from what it was like to have a meal plan. Essentially, students have to buy these massive packages of meal plans, especially their first year, and then they get to choose moving forward. But often they have meal swipes left over. If you don't use them, they expire, unrefundable. We gave students an opportunity to come by one of our tables and say, I want to donate these meal points. The funds are then taken from their account and spent mostly in the first way, which is they're transferred electronically onto the accounts of other students, so they, just like everyone else, can swipe into the dining hall and have this warm, amazing meal. So how did we get UCLA and dozens of other schools across the country to give away literally hundreds of thousands of dollars per piece? It started with this mountain of white styrofoam boxes, which I tried to describe earlier. This is my co-founder, Brian, and we have this very fancy Microsoft Word sign, as you can see, which asks students to walk into the dining hall and do exactly what we had done the day before on our own. Later that day, just very shortly after this photo was taken, we had a UCLA dining administrator come over to us, take this box of food that we had on the table, and smash it. And he said, this is not happening on my campus. You need to stop immediately. And rather than stop, what we decided to do was not continue in defiance, was not be nebbish and stop, was to ask for a meeting. Because we're like, what do you mean? These are our meal plans. Should we not be able to decide what to do, and should we not be able to do something good with them? And it was that conviction, that dedication, not to our white styrofoam boxes, but to believing that there had to be some justification in how we felt, that led us to go to that meeting, put on our nice clothes, and sit through months of negotiation to get them on board. Following that, we were able to get UCLA to agree to the model I shared earlier, where now students were able to take the money from their meal plan and donate it. We were able to go from 300 meals that we collected on that table that day to 1,500 a semester later, 4,000 a year later, and less than a year after that, at our last drive, 15,000 meals in a single quarter. That model has now scaled across the country. Campuses like Northwestern, University of Central Arkansas, over 37 universities have adopted this model. And what I want to share with you today is that change is possible. And the biggest way that we've gotten to where we are today was by focusing on the problem. So we were able to say that hunger was a problem. At first, that first day when we were swiping those boxes, we thought we were brilliant. What is a better idea than swiping food and handing it out to people? As we worked with the school, as we were open to that partnership, we came to the table with people who we saw as adversaries at first, people who were literally destroying boxes of food. We had to put our pride aside for the moment, for the sake of this idea, and actually got the chance to collaborate with people, professionals, who were operating at a scale level of thinking. They're like, well, why don't you just do this? And that completely elevated what we saw was possible. By partnering with them and being open to our idea changing, we were able to feed way more people in a way more scaled model. That's what allowed us to grow. And when I came back to LA in 2014, hustled, grew the program. Eventually, by 2015, we were donating hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I remember one night sitting at my desk in our office, which is like a shitty co-working space, an upgrade from a Starbucks, and thinking, looking at this Excel sheet and seeing that we tapped into hundreds of thousands of dollars, and just being in awe of how a group of friends with some conviction were able to do that. And the immediate next feeling was, but what happened to those dollars? Did we actually end hunger? Like, I believe in systems change. I am so focused on this, on actually making a difference. Where did those dollars go? And the next question was, well, what could we do with these dollars as we're scaling and tapping into even more funds to actually address a problem? And that's when we were able to pivot one more time. We made the decision to say, if we are truly invested in this issue and not just being a cool startup that's making a difference, how do we use these dollars to make a difference? And we almost had a responsibility and an opportunity to focus on our own peers. No one else was looking at it. No one else was positioned enough to respond to it properly. And we decided to shift our entire model and stay committed to this being the issue that we are taking on. So again, we were open to change. We assessed what is the actual problem. We thought we were solving one problem. I was talking to Randy earlier, who you'll hear from later today about the incredible work they're doing. And I said in the middle of our conversation, so like, is the problem that you're solving the same problem you thought you were solving when you started this? And he just laughed. And it's a question that you only realize when you're truly always testing, how do I get better and better at solving the grand challenge I'm trying to solve? And so now our problem is college student hunger, but that is housed in what I mentioned earlier, which is making higher ed more accessible. Making sure that when a campus sets up its partnerships, they're ethical ones. That food is not seen as a revenue source. How can we, and I understand someone has to pay for this building to be built. Businesses must be profitable. They must be sustainable. And I want to know how they can also be inclusive and representative and welcoming and not put people in debt to buy meal plans. So that is the big behemoth that we're taking on now. It's scary, right? When you talk about the industry, yes, we're giving students the fish. We're giving them the meal swipe on the day-to-day. We're teaching the schools how to fish. We're teaching them how to identify students in need, how to implement our program. And we're now taking on this big industry of privatized food service and accessible higher ed. And again, I go back to the inspiring social entrepreneur story, where we believe that it is possible to be critical, it is possible to be hopeful, and often the problem is where the focus should be, but we're allowed to focus on the solution too. So I believe that innovation, as this paper says, I've now adopted this as my philosophy, but as I'll read this to you, it's a little scribbly. It says, most innovative ideas come from existing practices or resources treated in new ways. I was handed this paper after I gave my first practice pitch. Someone in the room came over and handed me this postcard, and they thought that our model was truly innovative. because we were tapping into an existing resource or practice. And so I invite you, as you sit here today and you think about what difference you might make, and you don't know where to start, I invite you to think about the systems or the resources you partake in every day, or the ones that you see that you can learn more about and get involved with, and how you might be able to pull one lever, make one switch, and cause a monumental change. Because you never know. You might end up swiping out hunger. Thank you. I think we have a couple minutes if we want to open it up for any Q&A. There's a little pilot that Ohio State did, but I mean, let's chat after this and let's see who you think I should talk to and make it happen. There's a challenge. How did that make you feel? It's a rush, right? Yeah.
Most universities use food for revenue. I mean, that's their motivation, isn't it? They're not.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the food providers on campus, the retailers, the dining halls, are all the things that help subsidize the cost of running an institution. And I'm grateful for it. I love having amazing food on campus. And in addition to that, there's also students going hungry. And we can set up the pantry model and make sure that they're able to get canned food, non-perishable food. But I love kale, and I love avocados, and I think my peers do too. There's a story recently of a student at Temple University, and she was caught shoplifting, and she came to her academic advisor and said they let her go, and the professor was afraid to ask, but she asked, what were you shoplifting? And she said avocados. And it was because she was a middle-class student, didn't get enough aid, didn't want to ask her parents for more support, but loved avocados. Like, how much more middle class can that get? This issue is really touching everyone. And so let's continue to have that, but let's find someone else somehow, some way that we can make sure that students are also prioritized in addition to shareholders and profit making to reach all the students who are hungry. It's a yes and. The advice I have for a student looking to start a business. When I started, I probably went to coffee with people at least 4 to 6 times a month, if not more. When you're young, people don't think that you're actually capable or smart. They find you very not threatening. And they'll just open up their books and tell you everything and share all their ideas, because there's no way you're actually a threat to them. So I use that to my advantage. I encourage you to use that to yours. And I respond to students more than I respond to industry people, to be quite honest with you. And I'll just spend my time sharing, and now I do it willingly, but definitely tap into that wisdom and talk to people. It's very easy to get caught up in yourself and your own ideas and stay focused on that for too long and love your idea without testing it. Constantly talk to people, pitch to people. Don't take it personally, their advice, but practice that muscle of receiving feedback. Yes, such a brilliant question. As I mentioned, we believe that the government has a safety net. SNAP, also known as food stamps, makes sure that anyone who is low income is able to get this amazing debit card, usually with $100, $200 on it, that lets you go into the grocery store, buy the food you need, and be able to be fed. This is a stigmatized thing. I think it's silly. We have all these beautiful marketing materials now that say, because we're tabling all the time getting students enrolled in this program. It's a really tough government program. The form is confusing. You don't really know what to do, so you just need someone to help you through that process. So we're bringing those people onto campuses from community colleges to UCLAs to get enrolled in this program, and we're trying to help remove the stigma by saying, for the person who didn't make it to the club meeting and didn't get free pizza, here's $194 a month so you can get groceries. For the person, as I mentioned, having ramen for the 4th night in a row, $194, and just rebranding it. We think it's an amazing resource.
How do you swipe out hunger, not only on the campus, but outside?
It's a great question. So I didn't mention this too much, but when we started, when I said I was looking at that Excel sheet and noticing all these dollars going out, at the time, we were just like, let's make a difference. Let's write checks to food banks and just write checks to food banks. And the dollars were making a difference. I'm sure they're providing money to these amazing anti-hunger organizations to feed people. And we decided to pivot and say, how can our dollars have an even more magnified impact? And that was when we decided to invest them back on campus. Because if a student is about to take a placement test and they're hungry, they're going to do horribly on that placement test. Or if they're about to take a final or focus in class, so we saw the magnitude of those dollars going much further. That being said, there's such value in leaving your campus bubble and connecting with the community, both for the campus's own sake and their own good, and also for that student's experience. So we have a number of schools. Our program at UC Santa Barbara, for instance, students donate, 80% stays on campus as meal vouchers, as meal credits, and then 20% the students go on this like epic Costco shopping spree, go to a local homeless shelter, cook meals, teach classes on how to use iPhones. So we encourage, we're a very decentralized model. I could quit today, and all 37 of our university partners would continue to operate and continue to grow. What we do is go in and teach them, so we give them also the autonomy to decide how to use the dollars, and we just provide a whole host of best practices and case studies so that there are no excuses, because I can connect you to a partner at another school with a similar program and push the model even further. Awesome. Oh, is there one? Oh, yeah. University of Michigan. No, wait, watch this part. Their school is so horrible that whenever we worked for years to try and get them on board, and their school's like, no, this is not feasible, it's not feasible, to the point where their student government passed a referendum that took a percentage of their student fees and created their own fund, and now they have like this fund where they put credits onto students' meal plans. So that was like a beautiful roundabout way. It's the model that we use with a lot of non-traditional schools that we work with. So we have, I need to get better at learning who's in the Big Ten, but I don't think too many. I'm pretty sure I would know more. Northwestern's in the Big Ten, right? Yeah, Northwestern has a great program. What we actually did at Northwestern was even taking this a step further. The dining halls there used to close over Thanksgiving break and over spring break. But the challenge is if you're a student who doesn't want to pay $500 to fly back and forth over every break, the dining halls are closing, you have no food, essentially. And so we started with a backpack program that gave students who are going to stay on campus, international students, whoever might be staying on campus and not have access to food, this backpack of amazing resources. And now our students, their work has led to the dining halls just staying open now, and the school really being inclusive. Yeah, so again, OSU, let's step it up, come on. All right, is there,
I think we have one more question.
Yeah.
What's the best first step to take as a student trying to get Swipe Out Hunger onto your campus?
Such a great question. I think you saw me going for my clicker. Let's see if this will still come up. I had a slide with my contact info. All right, okay, so we love Instagram. Y'all are on Instagram anyway, just DM us and we can get started. I think I have some videos of us at the North Market last night on our Instagram story still. But if you go to swipehunger.org, there's a link on there that says start a chapter. It's a form that'll get you started and a ton of information on there. And in general, if you know a college student who might be interested in either starting a program, might need resources, our website is a portal to start this conversation. If you know administrators, if you know policymakers, if you know anyone at Sodexo or Aramark or any of these corporations and you think you can make an introduction, that would help grow this. And our goal is to make it normal to have a food services program on campus so that no one has to ask for this. It's just embedded in the programming. So feel free to reach out. Please, let's really move the movement forward. And if you also have your own idea you need workshopped, I'm happy to hop on a call and brainstorm that. Awesome.
Awesome. Cool. Well, if there's no more questions, please give Rachel a warm thank you.
Thank you.